All right.
So anyone want to start us off with prayer? Let's use the Shema as an outline. No one volunteers? Well, I guess we'll start. Hear, O Yah, we who are coming to you, we wish to pledge ourselves to follow you and obey you with all of our heart, mind, and soul. Lead us through this lesson so that we may understand the Torah as we incorporate it into our hearts so that we may apply it in our everyday life. In your precious Son's name, Yeshua, amen. And people got this handout. This is really intended for March 3rd.
What you talking about, this one?
Mm-hmm.
This is March 3rd, not today.
Right, not today.
Okay.
And the idea is this. Basically, I call this Bible Studies 101. And all we're doing is skimming over the text and not going too deep, because otherwise you couldn't do a chapter a week and say you're getting deep into the Bible or into Torah. However, a lot of you guys have some talent, and I like to sneak a little Bible Studies 201 into the lesson. And so in other words, go a little bit deeper than just going through a particular chapter. And I want some of you to start participating in, but before you participate, I want to sort of get a framework so that we don't get misdirected. Number one, Bernard gave an excellent presentation of Hebrew exegesis, which is used the acronym PARDES last week. Was it last week? And if you're going to be participating, I would like for you to review that lesson. I had hoped that Yazi, Dwayne, would be able to do a presentation today on mistranslations, common mistranslations that you pick up in various versions of the Bible. Because in talking to him and listening to him, he is pretty knowledgeable on the different translations and how they can sort of lead you astray. So once he made that presentation and once Bernard made his presentation, then I'm hoping that we'll start putting those principles into practice. This will be the following week, but I basically want at least 3 people, Bernard Jackson, Miguel, my sis, and Dwayne Jones and Yassi, to review this handout and to reconcile these different verses, because to a certain extent on their surface they appear contradictory. But if you really study them, you'll see that they mesh together perfectly with dealing with the character of Yah and how he operates with us. So I'm not going to go too much deeper into that, because like I said, we need to be able to get a framework on which to analyze these. And basically I would like to get some feedback from at least 3 members, but if anybody else wants to join them in terms of a joint presentation when we do discuss this. So today though, we're going to continue going through the Bible, and we're right now on Judges chapter 3. Everybody have a handout from last week?
We got Judges 3 right now. We talk about last week's handout. We have the Judges.
Which,
3.
well, that was last week's, was Judges 3. Actually, I don't have one.
Teacher don't have one? Here you go.
I don't like to be in anything.
Which one is it?
Oh,
No, I got it. I'm good.
here you go.
Oh, man, I'm just counting the students on
Oh, anybody gonna, let's pick somebody now to do a presentation when it's over with, because we have to tail in now, so. The women are gonna do a presentation, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right back to
I can do it.
Huh?
I can do it.
Okay, then. All right, then take good notes.
Pound it. Yeah, I'll take the notes.
Okay, Joshua 3, we dealt with the fact that, not just Joshua 3, Judges 3, is that this is going to give us a cyclical pattern that not only existed during the time of Judges, but it existed throughout Hebrew history, right on up until the present day, where we start off, okay, we're following the Torah, but then we wind up drifting off, and usually from our association with Canaanites, both back then and present. And we start worshiping their gods and practicing their ways, and we wind up in slavery.
Mm-hmm.
That has been our pattern for the last 3,000 years. Hopefully, in these last days, we're going to break out of that pattern. But it's important for us to recognize this historical pattern that we've been in since the days of Joshua and Judges. And we're going to be dealing here with an overview of the judges, if I can pronounce their name, Othniel, Ehud, Shanagan, Deborah, Gideon, Tola, Jer, Jephthah, Ibsen, Elan, Arden, Samson, Eli, and Samuel. And then two very nasty stories at the end.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Dealing with Micah, then the first civil war that developed by Israel among the Hebrews. Like I said, if they made a movie out of Judges, it'd be rated R, or maybe NC-17. It's a very bloody book.
The sliced and diced.
It's almost like some sections of it's like a horror movie. So let's start with verses 1 through 8. Idolatry leads to servitude. And that's not just true then, but it's true now. Anybody want to go through that?
Now these are the nations which Yahuwah left in order to test Israel by them. That is, all the people of Israel who had not previously experienced any of the wars in Canaan. Only in order that the generations of the sons of Israel might be taught war, at least those who had not experienced it previously. The remaining nations are the 5 lords or governors of the Philistines, all the Canaanites, the Sidonians, and the Hivites who lived on Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon to the entrance of Hamath. They are allowed to remain for the testing of Israel, to determine whether Israel will listen to and obey the commandments of Yahuwah, which he had commanded their fathers or their ancestors through Moshe. And the Israelites lived among the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And they took their daughters for themselves as wives, and gave their own daughters to their sons, and served their pagan gods. And the Israelites did evil in the sight of Yahuwah, and they forgot Yahuwah, their Elohim, and served the Baals and the Asherah. So the anger of Yahuwah was kindled against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of Kishon Rishhathim, king of Mesopotamia, and the Israelites served Kishon Rishhathim 8 years.
Okay, let's, okay, the questions. Anybody think there's some questions that need to be asked here?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
In verse 6, the question could be asked, or verse 6, and they took their daughters for themselves as wives and gave their own daughters to their sons and served their pagan god. The question could be asked here, why are they marrying those women, and why are they giving in marriage? Because the Torah teaches that we weren't supposed to intermingle with them.
That's true.
That's a good question.
But you're going to find that pattern, and doesn't that exist today?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Simulation, baby.
Simulation.
Duty.
Okay. I got previous questions. What y'all saying? He's going to teach these people need to learn how to go to war.
Oh, in the first line. Yeah.
Right.
First one, yeah.
Need to teach them how to go to war.
It says this generation had not previously experienced any of the wars in Canaan. But
That could be twofold purpose. One, to make them strong, and two, to show them how, well, at the same time, show them how weak they are. You ain't experienced war, and you ain't experienced what I'll put you through if you don't keep Torah.
Right. And but if you do go to war, what's going to happen?
you'll be the
One, you're gonna lose because you ain't keeping Torah, and two, you're going into captivity.
Say they keep Torah right off the bat. We haven't even got to the. Oh, when they get to 6, they're not keeping Torah, right?
No, they're not keeping.
But right off the bat, he's deciding that he's going to send some of them into war, and he left it, and he didn't remove the Canaanites because that's their job.
That's they're fighters, right?
Mhm.
They're supposed to be the one.
Excuse me, one of the women needs some water. They said sit there.
It's right there.
Sorry.
Interrupting our class.
Go ahead.
So, not the scandal before is pretty interesting.
Right. I mean, it all goes together.
Yeah.
They were allowed to remain tested.
Mm-hmm. So it's to a point, like you said, that Yahshua said you can't serve two masters, right?
Right.
So obviously, those Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, and Perizzites, and Hivites, and Jebusites will be alluring to the eye of the.
But Yah left them there, right?
Yeah, for that purpose.
He left them there for that purpose, though.
Because he said he's going to prove. See,
Right.
they're going to hearken unto my commandments.
to
Right.
determine whether Israel would listen and obey
Yes.
or not.
So that's a test.
Yes.
Test.
It's twofold purpose. Once it's a test for the Israelites.
Right.
Are they going to obey Torah? Are they going to rely on him and drive him out?
Or that flesh.
Uh,
Or that flesh. They took some wives. Like, man, I don't know what's good.
and second, they need to learn war anyway.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Like over, when with Joshua, when he was leaving him out, well, after they come out, but when they ended up, they went to war, and he was saying, well, why do you have these people going to the war basically to be doomed because they were getting slaughtered? But what Yah he told him, his response to him was because they were disobedient, and so he allowed them to be destroyed. Earlier, this is over in
well, that was one particular thing when stole that stuff out of Jericho.
yeah.
But stepping back and looking at it as a whole, right? Joshua went in, took a hell of a lot of land, and they were very proficient at war. But evidently some weren't.
Yeah.
Why do you think Yahweh wanted them to be proficient at war?
So when war came, they would be prepared to fight.
And what? And how
he
do you
still
know war
driving
was
out.
coming?
Wasn't he still driving out some of them too?
What? Even beyond driving them out, he wanted them to learn the art of war.
Right.
Why?
Because he's a god of war. Maybe.
True, but why should they learn it?
For attacks.
To protect themselves.
From who?
From
well,
From all the surrounding nations.
Right. And what, because all the surrounding nations were very warlike, were they not?
well,
And when
You
they-
had the Hittites, you had the Assyrians, you had the Egyptians,
Right.
you had the Philistines,
Right.
Ammonites. Ammon.
Ammonites, all of these knights. Historically, if you look at the Middle East during that period of time, they were surrounded by very warlike people.
People, right. So he had to prepare them.
Had to prepare.
Right.
And at the same time, it was a test.
yes.
Yep.
Man.
Huh. Boy.
So that comfort breeds contempt.
But they failed the test because in spite of Yahweh was not going to be with them as long as they was just living among the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, and all the rest of the termites. And then and then exchanging wives and daughters and all that kind of stuff with them. Man, that's a gross violation of the Torah.
Right. Serving pagan gods. Boy.
So the anger of the Lord was kindled against the anger of Yahweh, and he sold them into the hand of the Cushite king of Mesopotamia, and the Israelites served Cushite Rashid for 8 years. So idolatry, which is usually exemplified by intermarriage,
Okay.
and then worshiping their gods. And I've been saying over and over again, we're doing the same thing today.
Exactly.
What God are we worshiping?
Which ones aren't we worshiping?
That's a good question. But what particular God are we worshiping? The Christians.
They worship Tammuz, Semiramis.
And when do we worship Tammuz and Semiramis?
On holidays.
On Christmas
And Easter.
and Easter. Asheroth is one of the precursors of Easter. It's right here.
Yeah. Astro.
We also worship Eros.
Valentine's Day. Wow.
Who's Eros?
The Greek god of love.
Who was the son of,
Zeus, right?
no, son of Venus or Ash.
Astro.
What about an instance like I don't know if people make this church about Molech, right? When they offer their kids as sacrifices unto the burning hams.
Right. And Baal.
Yeah.
And do we do that today?
Yes.
And I mean as a culture. I don't mean
Yes.
us individually.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Abortions is like a form of worshiping Molech.
Yes, it is.
Janus. We worship Janus.
Mm-hmm.
Good fortune. Two-faced God.
Right.
Yeah.
That to see the out of all of the top priorities with me is the abortion rate, particularly among us.
Right.
40% of the children aborted.
Right. That's heavy.
and we're only 12% of the population.
That's crazy.
And the reasons for, and oh, by the way, the rate of abortion for quote Christian women is 60%,
Wow.
higher
That's high.
than quote pagan women.
I believe it, because that's their worship. That's their fun. They feel like they're free. Their body is theirs.
Mm-hmm.
They don't pay any respect to the unborn child. They don't believe it's a living human.
Yeah.
You know, and that's all attached to the idolatrous idea.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know that you can do as you will.
Yeah. It's my
Doing
body. I
whatever's
do whatever I
right in
want.
their own eyes. That's what we
And
just.
which class is the ones that has the highest abortion rate? They say, claim it's not poor,
It's the
That's the
rich.
it's the middle
Middle
The
class.
middle
and upper middle class.
Upper middle class.
And abortion is usually for convenience
That's
sake.
what I'm saying. Like,
I gotta get through school.
Exactly.
I gotta
they
advance
want
my
to quote
profession.
unquote blessing. That's the Molech, right? I'll about my child. I'm going to receive something.
Right.
Right.
That's crazy.
Right. They ready to sacrifice their child just to get the education.
Right, or whatever,
Or a bill.
or promotions and
Yeah.
whatever you have it.
But they don't know that children are
Are the
considered exactly a blessing to
from
Yah.
From Yah.
Mm-hmm.
That in the Hebraic mind, that's our blessing because we
Right.
have security in that in our old age. Right? But it's just that when you don't have a Hebraic mind and you don't think Torah, that seems normal
Yeah.
because
Right.
people don't even think abortions are. I mean, people think abortions are nothing.
It's the Canaanite culture,
Yes.
which has been incorporated, which we have incorporated. I'm talking about as a people.
Right. We've been pre-culturalized to certain stuff that'll just go on and it's automatic. They just do it automatically.
Mm-hmm.
And now our people, they do it automatically without thinking. And then the following week,
Oh,
they,
we outdo them.
we all do it.
That's what gets
But
me.
Jump right in front.
But the whole element of it is like
And even-
it's just changed. It changes the time, but it's the same thing, right?
Mhm.
So the whole philosophy of Planned Parenthood, you know, you're thinking like, man, I made a mistake. You know, I'm not ready to have this baby, right?
Mhm.
It's just like Hasatan telling Eve, you know, surely, you know, he knows the day that you eat of this, your eyes will be open. So they think they're becoming wise, but when you're supposed to be listening to Torah, I'm like, we're not supposed to eat that tree. I'm not supposed to destroy this baby. Actually, I'm supposed to be married. You know, like when you start honoring Torah,
Exactly.
then you're not going to fall victim
A
to that
lot
trap.
of people
Become
who
straight.
do
You become
abortions are married.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of people do it and marry.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And you know what's funny? How you said earlier that
interesting.
that we outdo them.
Right.
I'm going through Ezekiel personally right now, and I'm reading, and Ezekiel goes off on Israel. Well, Yah goes off on Israel, and basically says that you guys are sinning way more than the people that are around you. He literally says that
Mm-hmm.
you have
I
outsinned
remember that
the
verse.
nations around you.
Around you, yeah.
And Yah
That's
was
in
pissed. He was
Ezekiel,
pissed about
yeah.
it. Yeah. Like all of Ezekiel is like a negative prophet. There's parts that are good, like Ezekiel 11:11, and there's other. But yeah, we had gotten so wicked that the nations around us were learning how to be more wicked.
More wicked. Because they're saying, well, let's just follow what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
it.
So
Okay.
and then you said it leads to bondage. That's what you were saying. Idolatry leads to bondage.
So we unpacked that suitcase. Now let's go to the first judge, 9 through 14.
I'll read it. But when the Israelites cried out to Yahuwah for help, Yahuwah raised up a man to rescue the people of Israel. Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. The spirit of Yahuwah came upon him, and he judged Israel.
The spirit of Yahweh.
Mm-hmm. He went out to war and gave Yahuwah Cushan Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, into his hand, and he prevailed over Cushan Rishathaim, and the land was at rest from oppression for 40 years. Then Othniel, the son of Kenaz, died. Now the Israelites did evil again in the sight of Yahuwah, and Yahuwah strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, since they had done what was evil in the sight of Yahuwah. And Eglon gathered to him the sons of Ammon and Amalek, and went and struck down Israel in defeat. And they took possession of the city of palm trees, which is Jericho. And the Israelites served Eglon, king of Moab, for 18 years.
Okay. Oh, wow, this is going to be over and over again.
Almost 20 years in service.
Yeah.
Now, notice in paragraph, we're talking about the spirit of Yahuwah, Yahweh, who I say is really the spirit. Is one of these points where we try and start separating ourselves from this concept of the Trinity.
Here we go again. But go ahead.
No, that's all right. Why do you think we need to do that?
First of all, that teaching the Trinity is false. So.
But why? What's the problem with that?
Because it separates the quote unquote deities, like they're all different personalities.
Which deities do it separate?
Well, it said Yahuwah Elohim is one.
Right.
It separates Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Holy Spirit.
Right.
The Trinity concept is three different persons in one.
In one, yeah. That's crazy.
Schizophrenia.
Schizo, yeah.
But it's one person, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's our fundamental belief. It's just one person who manifests himself in three different ways. He manifests himself as Yeshua, and we're going to see that in terms of particularly with Gideon. And his spirit, which is what? Breath. Ruach. He imports power to people. So,
which in terms can be it's considered a gift, right?
mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it comes upon Othniel. I noticed that he is really he was son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, which made him what? What was his ethnicity?
Edomite.
Is Edomite?
Caleb was?
Yeah,
Was Edomite?
he was Edomite.
That's deep.
But the camps teach us that all Edomites were white people.
Yeah.
Right.
They're very wise.
Huh? Now he's able to bring him for 40 years, and then he dies, and Israelites then do evil. This is a pattern we're going to see through with all of the judges. As soon as that particular judge dies, Israel goes south again. We've talked about this before. My memory, as old as I am, is getting bad. The relationship between the people and the leaders. Anybody remember the conclusions and what we came to in terms of looking at the relationship between the leaders and the
During which point?
all through history?
Oh,
It's not only true of the Israelites, it's true in human history too.
Well, whenever the leader is righteous, the people become righteous in following the leader. But whenever the leader is wicked, the people become wicked.
Right.
That carries us all the way through Kings/Chronicles. That pattern.
The people usually follow the lead of the leadership. If the leadership is evil, usually the people are evil. Oh, let's put it this way. It's easier for the people to be evil.
Right.
Now, by the same token, when the people really become evil, one of the ways Yahweh punishes them as the people really become evil, one of the ways Yahweh punishes them is by giving them evil leaders and incompetent leaders.
Right.
So we have a sort of a relationship here. I'm studied a lot about German history, and one of the things I picked up is that Germany as a nation started going evil long before Hitler got there. They came up with a school of thought that totally attempted to emasculate the Torah. It's called higher criticism, that came out of Germany in the late 19th century. And a lot of people worldwide bought their criticism of the Bible, and it undercut a lot of fundamental beliefs in the Bible. A lot of the fraud, psychoanalysis. Germany was a leading nation in terms of totally giving man an excuse for the evil he did. That if you went out and murdered a whole bunch of people, it was because you weren't potty trained right. The whole field of psychoanalysis came out of Germany. A lot of schools of thought. And then, of course, even before Hitler came along, they saw themselves as a superior race. So I'm submitting that basically they set themselves up. And Yahweh put Hitler over them.
I see what you're saying.
So if a culture goes bad long enough, Yahweh is going to put somebody evil over them.
What are you trying to say about my beloved President Trump?
or Hillary. Either one of them would have. I really think he gave us a whammy. He gave us two bad ones.
Yeah.
Too bad. Too bad.
So you had a choice between a crook and or egomaniac.
Get shot or over the cliff.
Wow.
That's why I say, in terms of politics in the United States, my dog is not in that fight.
No, I heard that. Me neither. I don't deal with it.
That's up to Yah. But look, one of the things that this culture has done, this culture has adopted many of the philosophies that came out of Germany. If you all of the mainline Christian denominations, the Protestants, the Methodists, have accepted the concept of higher criticism. What higher criticism means, you don't have to accept the Bible literally. That's all it means. And the concept of eugenics came out of Germany. The concept of aborting kids that you felt were not that. Before they were killing Jews, they were killing the handicapped, the retarded. And eugenics developed before Hitler. And you know who was one of the main followers of the whole concept of eugenics? Margaret Sanger.
Yeah.
Who was German.
Yeah.
She was German.
You know, I don't know. Was she German?
I think she is.
She looked like Anne Frank.
But she certainly developed, that's where the philosophy came on. And that is thrown in it's in our culture like semen.
And wasn't it Margaret Sanger who said that the Negro needs to be what is it? Exterminated? Is that what she said?
That's exactly what
She
she
said they were like weeds.
There it is.
Yeah.
Germany came up with an idea of sterilizing people who they felt shouldn't reproduce. You know where they got that idea from? Margaret Sanger. Many states in the United States, particularly in the South, were sterilizing people. Black or white, but particularly black, who they felt shouldn't be reproducing. And the Supreme Court, in one case, endorsed that. Getting back to what we're talking about, this is nothing new. The more you study history, both Hebrew and pagan history, the more you see it's the same thing over and over again in each generation. And each generation think they've came up with something new.
Nothing
And it's nothing new under the sun.
new. Nothing
Now, so we have the Israelites under this Eglon king of Moab for 18 years. Okay, Moab, who are they?
Moabites were
Right. Where are they from?
If the
they were
Lot's
Lot's descendants.
Right.
half daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Moab and they both lived in the southeastern area region of Israel, off to the side.
Right.
You had Ammon to the east, and then you had Moab, like southeast.
Right across the lake.
Now the camps say the Moabs are Chinese.
So I heard that before. I don't know.
Can they show me that in the book? No.
Okay, continuing on. Now, Ehud rescues Israel from Moab. That goes on down to 30, from 15 to 30.
You still got that right here?
All right, from 15 to 30. All right. But when the children of Israel cried unto Yahuwah, Yahuwah raised them up a deliverer, Ehud, the son of Gera, a Benjamite, and a man left-handed. By him the children of Israel sent a present unto Eglon and the king of Moab. But Ehud made him a dagger which had 2 edges of a cubit length, and he did gird it under his remnant upon his right thigh. And he brought the present unto Eglon, king of Moab, and Eglon was a very fat man. And when he had made an end to offer the present, he sent away the people that bear the present. But he himself turned again from the quarries that were by Gilgal, and said, I have a secret errand unto thee, O king, who said, keep silence. And all that stood by him went out from him. And Ehud came unto him, and he was sitting in a summer parlor, which he had for himself alone. And Ehud said, I have a message from Elohim unto thee. And he arose out of his seat. And Ehud put forth his left hand, took the dagger from his right thigh, and thrust it into his belly. And he have also went in after the blade. Let me repeat that. And the haft also went in after the blade. And the fat closed upon the blade, so that it could not draw the dagger out of his belly.
Wow.
And the dirt came out. Then Ehud went forth through the porch and shut the doors of the parlor upon him and locked them. When he was gone out, his servants came, and when they saw that, behold, the doors of the parlor were locked, they said, surely he covered his feet in the summer chamber. And they tarried till they were ashamed. And behold, he opened not the doors of the parlor. Therefore they took the key and opened them. And behold, their sovereign was fallen down dead on the earth. And Ehud escaped while they tarried, and passed beyond the quarries, and escaped unto Serath. And it came to pass when he was come that he blew a trumpet in the mount of Ephraim, and the children of Israel went down with him from the mount, and he before them. And he said unto them, Follow after me, for Yahuwah have delivered your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand. And they went down after him, and took the fords of Jordan towards Moab, and suffered not a man to pass over. And they slew of Moab in that time about 10,000 men, all lusty, all men of valor, and there escaped not a man. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel, and the land had rest 80 years.
80 years.
80.
For 80 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right. Finish up at 31 because the Bible doesn't give him much press, but here's another one of the judges.
And after him was Shemgar, the son of Anak, which slew the Philistines 600 men with an ox goad. And he also delivered Israel.
It's a precursor to Samson, right? Okay.
Looking for that ox goad.
Somebody see if I would love to have someone put this in more blunt language. One of the problems I had is I taught Sunday school for 3 to 4 years at Family Community, and I was eventually fired.
I used to go there too.
Because I was somewhat more blunt
Yazzie!
in terms of what the Bible, because I think Yazzie will back me up on this. A lot of the language out of Hebrew was cleaned up, cleaned up because it would be too graphic. And the Gentiles who translated it didn't want to be so frank. But, and this is one station you don't hear it taught much in the Christian churches because it is very graphic.
It is.
You got a very fat king ruling over Israel. So Ehud, remember, he was operating based on the spirit of Yahweh, like Yahuwah. He's operating as an agent of Yahuwah. First of all, he pulls a ruse to get in to see this guy. And he's premeditated. Now he's left-handed. Most people are used to right-handed people. And back in the sword days, if you were right-handed, your sword was over here. He's left-handed, so his sword goes over here. So when they search him, which they always do, if you go in to see the president or you go in to see governor, they're gonna make sure you're not armed, right? They're only thinking about checking here. They were not thinking about checking there. So this guy's,
And it's strapped to his
and it's
thigh.
strapped to his thigh.
Right thigh.
Or
So then he came there with an entourage to bring gifts and tributes, which you had to do if some other tribe or group was ruling over you. They usually required you to bring tributes once a year. And after this is over, he gave them the tributes, and then he sends his people away. And then he said, "Hey, King, I got something. It's a secret. I got to tell you." He said, "Oh, okay." So he sends his people away. Then he takes out his sword and sticks it in him. Sticks it in him so far that it's totally enclosed by his fat. Now this, somebody tell me, What's this upper chamber? What's that describing?
Which particular verse?
Oh, I'm sorry.
23. No.
Oh, yeah, 23. What's our modern day nomenclature of what he's describing?
Like maybe a sunroom or
How about just a bathroom?
Yeah.
A toilet.
oh,
This is a toilet.
Number 20. His private, cool upper chamber.
And he's sitting on the stool. Oh, he probably. That's why his servant's so reluctant.
Oh man.
But this whole operation is such a way that he's able to assassinate the guy and get away because the servants did not want to go in and disturb him while he's on the toilet. But unfortunately, we live in I think that's one of the reasons Judges is not taught much in the Christian church, because it's a very brutal book. And these people are not playing games.
So Ehud gave him something to help with his constipation.
Antidote.
Yeah. He cleared him out.
Yeah.
Hey, that's what it said, man. Double edged. They come in here like, clown, pull back out.
Now you go to the bathroom.
There's no need to be ha, 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 ha. There's no need for ultimate, once you go in there and I come back out, I'm taking everything out.
So he just saunders on out like he's just assassinated their king. Now without their king, he's then able to round up enough people to go out and wipe out, 10,000?
10,000.
Because they without a leader at this point.
Yeah.
And before they can get a chance to select a new leader and get organized, he wipes them out. But he gives them 80 years of rest, 80 years of peace.
That's a couple generations.
Yeah, that's a pretty long time. Like actually, anybody has the what's this version?
Got the camera right on us.
Yeah, on page 424, there's a chart giving the judges of ancient Israel. Like Othniel, he judged for 40 years. Ehud for 80 years. Shamgar, not given. Deborah for 40 years. Gideon for 40 years.
That's everybody's favorite, Deborah.
Tola for 23 years. Jared 22 years. Jephthah, he didn't do much. It was 6 years. Ibsen 7 years. Elon 10 years. Abdon 8 years. Samson 20 years. Eli 40 years. Samuel is not given, but Samuel was a long time. Plus, most of all, Samuel anointed what? Saul and David.
He was
He was raised in Shiloh too.
yes, he was.
said he was raised at Shiloh.
Right. All right.
Elwood, before we continue on, I want to try to clear something up. I ain't saying you're wrong, but I don't think old boy was sitting on the toilet. This in the King James, when it talks about it, it says he was sitting in his summer parlor. And the word, yeah, the word used there for summer is what is this? Mekera, and it has to do with coolness or cooling. So I'm thinking this guy was in a room that he set aside for himself to go into just to cool off when it's hot.
Why don't you check that out then?
It's quite. I'm looking at right now.
No, what I want you to do is there any way you can get back to the Hebrew and go through the Hebrew, not the King James, but through the Hebrew?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll break it down and.
Yeah, why don't you break it down and bring it in? Cause I gotta tell you, I don't trust any translation that I'm working from, and I'll try and put it into context. If this was just a room where you can kick back like a patio, I can't see why the servants didn't see any problem with going in there and talk to them.
This is why I think they had an issue going in, because it was a cooling room, and he probably wasn't dressed, because you know when you get hot you start taking off clothes.
Yeah, that could be it.
Yeah.
That could be it. But why don't we check that out? Really go back to the Hebrew and see what the Hebrew says. I'm trying to think. There are some Hebrew. Oh, I've checked some out on the internet.
Now, it is an interesting.
But there are people who have gone through the King James and the other versions and went back to the Hebrew and said, no, this is what it really said.
But not Robert Trail is a different thing. But it is interesting when we're seeing how the gift of the spirit of Yahuwah coming upon people. Because when we read the first verse, it said that these children had not known war. Now we're saying that the spirit of Yahuwah is coming upon these judges, and they're acting out as warriors now. Judges.
The judges are leading them as warriors. Well, that's another thing we learned in leadership, and I don't know how many people been in the military. Yeah, you've been in the military.
I went through training, but
right. A military unit is only as good as its leader. You can have some of the best, toughest soldiers in the world, but if they got a lousy leader, they're gonna get wiped out. The judges were on the whole, they weren't perfect. By all means, we're going to see this as we go through it. But their first qualifications was they would be good military leaders. And they were good military leaders when they followed Yahweh.
Yes.
Because who is the actual commander when the person is compliant with Torah? Yah. And that was set up by Joshua at what situation? Remember before he went into Jericho, he did what? He walked around the camp.
And saw the angel of Yahuwah.
And he saw a person with a sword. And he confronted him. Who are you?
Yeah.
And what was his response?
He asked him if he was for him or against him, and the angel said neither.
Right.
Down to him.
Yeah. How did he announce himself? Who did he say he was? What title did he say?
Captain? Was it captain?
I'm the boss, in other words. I'm in charge.
That's good. It's interesting the connection with the other side, with the spiritual realm in the wars of Israel, and especially in like you were saying, when you get a leader that's appointed by Yah to lead the people, whether it be in war, to deliver them, or what have you, the spirit of Yah always goes before Israel. That's a principle. So that angel that was there was probably at every battle that Israel fought, if they were fighting it in Torah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's
if they were in Torah, usually you have the leader in Torah, and he leads the people, and he leads them into compliance, back into compliance with Torah. Not just winning a war, but back into compliance with Torah. Any more questions?
Did we just get all three directions or what?
Well, we had to throw this together. So here's the chain of command. And when you have this combination, you're going to always prevail.
Yes.
But the Hebrews always prevail when they got this. But when they got just going their own way, they're gonna always lose. And that's sort of the principle today. Well, anyway, what time is it?
It is
2:38.
Oh, okay. Next week, we're going to have Yazi. Should he grace us with his presence? And who's going to do one of the things I think is important for us to start understanding. And Damien brought that out today because I don't really trust the translations that I read.
yeah, we're done too. We're coming out.
Is to be able to get back to the actual Hebrew statements, because I've read enough, particularly on the internet, to know that a lot of translations have been, quote, prettied up. And, like Jeremiah, your sins are like dirty rags. In the Hebrew, it's menstrual cloth. And when I thought,
I said that shows you how real our people was when it came to describing how filthy a thing could be.
They use the most filthiest thing to identify that.
This is another thing that's in the Hebrew camps, you know. In some of these camps, they believe that they can use profanity and curse words to get their points across, and they say things like, you know, Paul used rude speech, and you know, the prophets that prophesy, you know, they didn't use the terms that we use now. They were saying stuff like, you know, F you and this and that, and they actually cursed the people out in the street.
no, you don't have to curse to be able to be graphic.
No,
Oftentimes, just describe what you're talking about.
exactly. Yeah, and a lot of people say that when you cuss a lot, it shows a sign of ignorance.
It does.
You
And
have
in
a low
fairness,
vocabulary.
did you guys ever play the dozens when you were a kid? Right? The best players could tear you up without using a single curse word. Just being extremely graphic.
Oh yeah, especially talk about your mom.
Oh, you don't mean your mom's so fat that planets orbit around her?
Your mom's so fat she jumped and got stuck.
Quarterback was a refund.
She's so strong she gargled peanut butter.
Don't have me get the buzzer out.
Let's stay on time.
We still live.
But no, but the key thing is that many times when we're going to see it going through Judges, the Bible is very graphic.
Yes.
It doesn't pull any punches. But we have a tendency, and I think it comes through in some of the translations we're reading, where punches are pulled. And when we come across it, so Damien, if you can check that out, if it's not the bathroom, fine, we need to know that it's still a place, but.
Yeah, I looked at it and it's an actual cooling chamber where you go when it's hot.
But was it
Right,
cooling
but
chamber? I know my bathroom is very cool.
Oh.
And it
My
did-
thing-
That is
it-
only definition.
My thing is, I was like, well, he got it up high. I'm like, usually if you
Oh,
want
but
cool,
things
you
were
gonna
always,
go
no.
lower.
Back in the Mideast, they lived during the summer. Well, not during the summer, but they lived on top of their houses.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine that in the heat though.
Mm-hmm. Not in the middle of the heat, but
Yeah.
Afternoon and morning.
Yeah.
They lived on
Cooling
top of
chamber.
their houses, and many times they'd sleep on top of their houses.
For sure. Aliyah.
Aaliyah. Yeah.
That's my wife's name. I mean, my daughter's name.
It has two. Aaliyah has two meanings.
Yeah, it says cooling chamber, but it also says private cooling chamber.
Mm-hmm.
So that could
That's
be
the
the
word
reason why
of it.
no one went in.
Mhm.
That's another part of it as well.
I said relieving, it's like 24,
What's
said
the other
relieving
What's the other
himself.
meaning?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. It said he was relieving
That's
himself.
to do with being called, lifted up high, or being called up.
Right.
Yeah.
But
So,
Damon's gonna
you
check it out.
You presenting for the class?
Yeah, I'm gonna say we talked about people's mamas.
Cooling We're gonna play this music out because we gotta get out there.
Yeah, we talked about getting murdered on the
I'll
toilet.
turn it off, man.
That's a bad way.
Oh, let's finish with prayer. Let's put prayer on the record. Oh, okay. Someone want to end in prayer?
Alright. Abayah, Torah Rabbah, for the fellowship, Torah Rabbah, for your word. We thank you for the volunteer who's going to go out and represent this class. We ask that you would bless him, use him according to your will. We want to thank you, Abba, for our presenter this morning, our teacher, our Moray, El Voice, for guiding this class and your study of your word. We thank you, we praise you, we look forward to serving you, we look forward to when we can come together again and say your word. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen. Okay. So that'll be. Remember, this is not next week now.